This weekend, The Tomorrow War, the latest Chris Pratt sci-fi action vehicle, premieres on Amazon Prime. So let's talk about it. In The Tomorrow War, people of the present are drafted to fight a war against aliens in the future. So essentially, I'm a sucker for action sci-fi movies, especially if they involve aliens invading the Earth and getting mowed down with machine guns, and I also really like Chris Pratt and whenever Hollywood decides to do original stories, so naturally I was looking forward to this movie. Then I realized that Chris McKay is directing it. He's the guy that directed the Lego Batman movie, and he's theoretically been working on a Nightwing movie for several years now, so that even further raised my anticipation for the film. Before I let you know what I thought about it, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Let me know your expectations for the film. If you've seen it, what did you think about it? And let's get started with the good. And this movie was exactly what I hoped it would be, plus more. Going into it, I just wanted to see a sci-fi alien invasion war movie with Chris Pratt in the lead, and there is no shortage of that. Takes a little while to kind of put the pieces in place and get to the Tomorrow War, and as soon as you get there, it just drops you right in the middle of this battle sequence that goes on for like 25 minutes as they make their way through their city, and it kind of slowly builds tension as you wait for the aliens to arrive, and then it turns into utter chaos, and it's all the stuff you wanted it to be. And then it kind of goes into, they go on some missions to try and collect some information, there's final showdowns, like all the things that I was hoping I would get from this movie. Absolutely, it delivered on. And part of what adds to the terror of all of it is that the draftees almost exclusively are average Joes with no training whatsoever. They're shown the bare minimum of what they need to know, and then they're just thrown into this war as essentially cannon fodder to minimally slow down the extinction of mankind in the future. And so it's just utter chaos as you see them trying to desperately survive these situations that they're put into, and a handful of people knowing what they actually need to do and trying to bring a little bit of order to things. And to that point, it very much so keeps you on the edge of your seat throughout these action sequences. When it gets crazy, like you're waiting for it to go down. You're like, I know something's gonna go wrong. I know it's not gonna be this easy. And then it starts getting crazier and crazier, and just waiting for the payoff of the tension that's coming, slowly revealing something's there, and then everything kind of goes crazy, and people you've spent a bunch of time with start dying right in front of you as you're just hoping some people will survive just long enough. And as the plot progresses, they add a few more layers into it of things that need to survive, elements that need to take place, and so it just does all the stuff that I wanted to take place in a movie like this. Adding to that, you always have to talk about the creature itself, and they're designed to be immense threats that are quick moving, real gross looking when you look at them, and have a bunch of different ways that they can kill humans that have machine guns. They try and find a way to have a reason why these creatures that are running on the ground can take out a bunch of people with machine guns. But the big surprise with this movie is that it's a lot more emotional than I was understanding from the trailers. I was just expecting war sci-fi movie with Chris Pratt, so I knew there'd be a little bit of humor thrown in there. But really at its core, it's kind of a story about family and legacy and the relationship between parents and children. And it's interwoven all throughout the story and in multiple different ways, in which case when you have certain moments taking place, it hits you pretty hard. And likewise, it kind of is dealing with the implications of what if people from the future showed up and said the human race goes extinct in 30 years, what would that do to the current generation, the current governments, and how would they respond to it? What would happen? And so it's just like this there's a weightiness to the entire film that you feel while being very personal at the same time. It deals with the global stuff in a certain sense, but it's very much about how would families relate to one another in light of all of this and these situations that take place. And as you start getting into the second half of the film, there's a bunch of different sequences that make the emotion level rise up. Certainly started to put a couple tears in my eyes at certain points in time. And I was absolutely not expecting that going into this film. There's a lot more to it than the trailers imply. While it does deliver all the stuff you expect from the trailers, there's more to it. The story, I think, is a much grander in size, and it's much more personal too. From there, let's move on to the mixed aspects of the film. And the big thing here is the story doesn't flow the way most blockbusters flow or build up to a one big clear finale the way most blockbusters do. It feels a little bit like a trilogy of stories told in one movie. It covers a lot of ground, and the story is kind of told in 5 different acts, and the movie feels like it could have ended after Act 2, Act 4, and then of course it does end after Act 5. But legitimately at the end of Act 4, I thought, okay, I guess there's about 5 minutes left in the film. We're gonna do a little bit of epilogue now. No, there's about 45 minutes left in the film, and it was just different. The way it flowed, like what I was expecting to happen wasn't what happened, and I think I really liked that. It almost played like a book as well, with chapters and different sections to it, and didn't neatly fall into the formula that you expect from a blockbuster, but it is a little bit unusual. There are several points in time we were like, okay, I guess we're done. Oh, we're not done at all. We're going somewhere else with this. And I could see where some people wouldn't like that. It took me a little bit while I was watching it to adjust to it. By the time I got to the end, I was like, I think I really liked the way it did this. It wasn't trying to set up 10 sequels. It built out a nice world, told this big sweeping story, and did something different while trying to tell that story. From there, let's move on to the bad. First thing here is there's a couple tonal issues with the movie. As I mentioned before, it's a very bleak and dark premise, and so naturally they want to break some of the tension, add a little bit of fun by having some of the characters be funny and just kind of their personalities a little bit sarcastic. They're commenting on what's going on around them. Just adds a little bit of humor into it. You can naturally see how Chris Pratt would have some funny lines, but it's not consistent throughout the film, and so then it feels at times where certain characters show up that we go from bleak to wisecracking person, and then wisecracking person leaves, gets killed off, whatever happens to them, and then we're back to bleakness. There's a little bit uneven with the tone, way it plays out. Likewise, very much along those same exact lines, the way characters come and go from the story is a bit awkward. Each of the acts are very distinct, and each act kind of has its own set of characters that are involved in it. And so you might get to the end of an act, certain characters disappear, and maybe they don't come back, maybe they're killed off, maybe they return for the 5th act. And so there's people who get invested in, and then they're like, all right, we're off on another mission. And then they leave, and you're like, wait, that's it? That's all we get with them? It's kind of a bit strange. Once again, by the time the movie was over with, it all played out and made sense the way it was doing things, but just the nature of the story with the time travel and the different missions, it is awkward the way some characters come and go from the movie. And the last one on here, and this is maybe a nitpick, but in the final couple minutes, it gets really heavy-handed. It's trying to communicate its message about the characters and what they've learned. And I mean, literally the last 30 seconds does some voiceover, and it kind of basically states the message of the movie. And you're like, right, you showed us that. You clearly told us that through the story. You didn't have to actually state it to me. I'm not an idiot. Please don't talk down to me. But to be entirely clear, this movie far exceeded my expectations on almost every level. I was expecting a good movie, and ended up being far better than that. On almost every level, it was better than I was expecting it to be. Couple awkward things here, couple strange things. It's a little bit different in how it flows and uses characters and tone. There's some flaws, but I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Don't sit on this one. If you like action, war movies, alien invasion stuff, especially ones that have a nice heart at the center of them, go and watch this film. Overall, I'm going A-. Entertainment scale, I'm going with an 8.5, and you should definitely watch this movie. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to check out that video right over there. I don't even know what YouTube is recommending to you right now, but I'm sure it's amazing. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.